So welcome. My name's Dave Sheeran. So first of all, what's the objectives? Why are we actually doing these sessions? So number one, we realize that in these times, a lot of you are having to work at home, and we're hoping to facilitate how you can use ProjectWise to work at home. At the same time, one of the goals is to help you understand the different personas that you may be playing within ProjectWise. So whether you're a power user, whether you're a designer, whether you're a project manager, an administrator, or a manager, and helping you determine which of the tools are appropriate to you. And once you determine that, we'll help you with how to configure that, both for users and administrators. So maybe what do you require from a licensing point of view, or how do you set up your ProjectWise Explorer so you can work at home and access the data back in the office? We'll go into detail on all of those things. And at the same time, we hope to provide an overview of some of the many tools available to remote users. So specifics can include things like the PDF markup and review tool that we'll be covering in a week or so. And then, as I mentioned, things like deliverables, transmittals, and submittals through our deliverable management set of tools. So with that, feel free to ask questions in the chat window. As I mentioned, my colleagues, and specifically Mark's going to kind of take the lead, Mark Gowell, who's based here in Canada with me. We'll answer questions as they come in, but we can also leave questions to the end as well. So my goal today really is to provide you a high-level overview of ProjectWise. I'm not going to get into the details of when you would use what tool today, or the different types of users that would use these tools. I really just want to focus on what are the capabilities of ProjectWise. So with that in mind, in general, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with ProjectWise, but there may be some on the call who have never seen ProjectWise, haven't used ProjectWise, and now that they're having to work at home, they're wanting to know more about it, and maybe even how their other colleagues are using ProjectWise. But at a high level, ProjectWise helps project teams to manage, share, and distribute engineering project content and review all that in a single platform, or what we call a single source of truth. So it does include desktop tools for designers to both manage and collaborate inside those design tools. And I've listed some of them here. It could be MicroStation, could be AutoCAD, Revit, Civil 3D. But aside from just the desktop tools, we also have a number of web services that are available for managers, for reviewers, consultants, and document controllers. So with that, I'm going to go through some of the client interfaces to start, and then I'll talk about some of the various web services that are available to those different types of users. And I'll start with the ProjectWise Explorer. So the ProjectWise Explorer is actually a desktop client. It allows us to integrate with ProjectWise Design Integration. So you're looking at a snapshot of the ProjectWise Explorer on the right. It very much has a look and feel of Windows Explorer, where you have what we call ProjectWise work areas over on the left-hand side of the pane. And then inside of those work areas, we might see other folders, subfolders, and documents, such as what you see in the right pane. It allows users, once the desktop client is installed on their either laptop or desktop, to navigate and edit projects and all the related documents, just with an internet connection. And we'll speak to some of the details if you're needing to connect to the office. There's configuration capabilities right inside the tool that allow you to talk to your server back in the office, and we'll deal with those in tomorrow and later sessions. But in general, as you can see, very much a look and feel of a Windows Explorer tool. So very easy for folks to understand and navigate. If we look at the right pane, typically the icon just to the left of the document name itself indicates what application is associated with it. So in this case, this stadium.dgn is associated with MicroStation, and if I were to double click on it, I would open up that application. And when I say that it integrates directly with the design applications, what I mean is if I were to do something like a file open, once I open up that MicroStation file or that AutoCAD Civil 3D file, it would then look back into ProjectWise rather than looking at my Windows desktop. And the same would be true if I want to do things like attach an XREF or a reference file. It knows to look in ProjectWise, and that's really what I mean when I say there's integration with those design applications. At the same time, I can also see things like a little pencil beside the document just tells me that that document I have the ability to edit or to write to it. Whereas if I see a book symbol, such as a little bit higher up here, that means that that document is read-only. A check mark indicates that someone else is working on that document. That is, they've checked it out. And I can actually see the user. So in this case, this is checked out by a user called David Sheeran, which happens to be me in this case. If I see a lock symbol, it typically indicates that that document is locked, and that could be for numerous reasons. It could be because it's read-only to me or not available to me, but in this case, I can see that it's checked out to a user called Doc Approver. And so I don't have the ability to edit that at this time, but I can still open it and view that. One of the important aspects of the ProjectWise Explorer is its ability to search for different information. So we can search a lot of different ways within ProjectWise. We can search based on metadata. So that's information that is specific to your organization. Maybe it's things like a discipline, maybe it's a department, maybe it's a document number. It can be fields that you can define at the project level and allow you to search for that information. We also have the ability to index the text inside documents. So if we want to find any text inside a Microsoft Office type document, a spreadsheet, Word document, and so on, or even inside CAD drawings, we can search for those. So if I were inside a MicroStation file and I wanted to find every instance of 300 millimeter pipe, I could search inside the document as well, right from here within the ProjectWise Explorer. At the same time, we also have the ability to search spatially. So for instance, if I were to click on the Spatial tab inside the ProjectWise Explorer and I had enabled that, then I would have the ability then to view a background map that's representative of the folder and or documents that I have selected at that time. So in my case, on this particular folder, I've selected on the Toronto folder on the left, and it's exposed a background map that I'm using for this particular project. That background map could be a state, it could be a county, it could be a city as in this case, it could even be a campus or even a plant. It's really up to you what you want to define for that background map, but the general idea is it gives me a more intuitive way to search for information. The benefit being I don't necessarily know anything about the documents. Maybe I don't know the metadata or I don't know the document name, but I know that the project I'm looking for is in a particular part of my project area, whether that be the city or the county or the campus. And it would allow me then to go in and say, okay, I want to look for all the documents within this particular spatial area. But at the same time, I can also say I'm looking for specific metadata as well. And maybe I'm looking for specific text inside the documents and matching that as well with that spatial area. At any time, any of these searches can be saved, assuming I have the privileges to do that. So I could save a search that's maybe available just for me. Possibly I'm the only one who's interested in looking for documents in this particular area that match that criteria. But I can also make searches available for everyone within the organization or on the project. And what that means is it provides them with a very straightforward one-click approach to get to the appropriate documents. But at any time, these can all be done ad hoc, meaning I just go through the different tabs and I can search on the fly and bring back the results that I'm looking for. In general, the ProjectWise Explorer is ideal for designers and power users because it contains really the full functionality of ProjectWise and also the integration that I talked about that's so critical for designers when they're working in those different design tools. The next thing I'm going to talk about is, from a client point of view, is ProjectWise Web View. So ProjectWise Web View provides read-only access through your browser to your ProjectWise data. It's provided at the data source level, and for those of you who aren't familiar with what a data source is, you could think of it like a ProjectWise server. So if you work for a large organization, for instance, you may have different ProjectWise data sources around the country or around the globe, and you may only need access to certain ones. So the idea is I would go in, I would select the data source that I want to access. So in this case, I've selected Decide US02. And when I do that, I see all of the ProjectWise work areas within that data source or within that ProjectWise server. Once I go into that particular work area, I will then see all of the folders and or documents within that specific work area. And then if I go drill a little bit further into a specific folder, I would then see any subfolders and documents available to me. In the case of ProjectWise WebView, it's a read-only tool, so meaning I can download any of these documents and I can view them locally on my desktop, but I don't have the ability to make edits or changes through WebView. The next tool I like to talk about is one of what we call the ProjectWise 365 services. But again, I look at it as another client access capability provided to ProjectWise. In this case, through ProjectWise Web Connections, we're providing project level web access. So with WebView, it's read only and it's at the data source level. Here we're at the actual project level. So I would get to ProjectWise Web Connections by going to the ProjectWise Connect Center. So connect.bentley.com, and I would log in with my IMS login. And when I do that, I would select a particular project that I want to access. Once I select on that project, then I would see the view that you're seeing here. So I get my project details, I see the team members in the project, and then I see all of the 365 services down below. If I select on the ProjectWise Web Connections tool that I've marked in the screenshot, I would then go into the web connections for that specific project area. And within here, then I would see, as you can tell from the screenshot, the different capabilities that are available to me. So through ProjectWise Web Connections, I have the ability to create new versions, for instance. I can change states in a workflow. I can open up any document for edit with the ProjectWise Explorer. And at the same time, I can also do things like create PDF markups. So I'll speak to that, to the markup tools in another session. But if, for instance, I were to select on that ceiling plan and click on it, the default behavior would be to open up the PDF markup tool and give me the ability to add red lines and markups. And that also provides multi-user access. So two people can both be marking that up at the same time. And we see near real-time updates of those markups. So with that, I'm going to now talk kind of a little bit in more depth beyond what I call those first three levels of client access. So we talked about the ProjectWise Explorer, which is really an installed client that gives you all of the features of ProjectWise. We talked about WebView, providing read-only access to ProjectWise. And then we talked about ProjectWise Web Connections, giving me the ability through a browser to still make changes, edits, updates, download things, and so on. But we do have a host of other 365 services that really address a broader scope of users, kind of beyond those that are maybe just wanting to view the documents themselves. And again, you will see these at the project level. So once you log into connect.bentley.com and you access your project, you'll see all these services down below, such as I've highlighted here. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the share service. So when one clicks into the share service, they'll see a couple of things. So number one, I guess they're going to see that in the upper right here, I've selected on a project and I've gone into the ProjectWise Share for that particular project. And the idea behind Project Share is to give me a mechanism to quickly and securely exchange files and just facilitate collaboration with external parties. What's key here is there's no direct tie to ProjectWise here. There's no requirement for ProjectWise, but it provides a mechanism to share information. So the idea is I can, within each project, I can choose to share information with others. And I would see those locally in my own desktop as an extra node. So you'll see in my case, I've got a cutout of Windows Explorer down in the bottom screenshot. In this case, I've got 3 different projects. They're all underlined. I've underlined the projects' names here. And under each of those projects, I would see the folders that have been shared within those projects. And what's nice about this is it's a bi-directional sync. So if I go and I add a document to my architectural folder, so here right now I've got 4 PDFs that I've shared. If I add a new PDF to that, that will then be synchronized up in the cloud so that anyone I've shared the architectural folder with will then see that new file, and vice versa. If I go into the cloud and I add a document here in the architectural folder, that will then synchronize down with my desktop. So just in general, the ProjectWise Share provides a great tool, really without the need of ProjectWise, but gives you the ability to share information and documents with external parties. So the next topic I'd like to talk about is deliverables management. And this is the third ProjectWise service you'll see when you first log into a project. And at a high level, deliverables management provides really the ability for us to manage requests for information, transmittals, and submittals. And here in the Americas and for Europe, my colleague Teresa is going to go into this in some detail in a later session, but I'll just provide kind of a high-level overview for you. Within the tool set of deliverables management, I also have the ability when I'm creating, for instance, a transmittal, to create a draft that I can use later on. I can also create templates that I can reuse when I'm creating transmittals. It gives me the ability to manage and automatically generate cover letters. So we provide an Excel template that is pretty easily modifiable to add things like your company logo and so on, but it provides that template cover letter that says who are the recipients that it's going to. It gives me a date stamp and also provides a list of the documents that are in that transmittal. One of the important aspects of our deliverables management toolset is the audit trail that's provided. So each and every communication that happens within deliverables management is tracked. And that becomes really important if we happen to have litigation on a project and we want to go back and see who said what when. We have that audit trail available to us that will track things like, okay, I can see you've acknowledged that transmittal. I can see you responded to that transmittal. Similarly with RFIs, I have the whole record of that request for information. What was the question? When was it answered? Was it acceptable? And so on. At the same time, deliverables management is also an extremely useful tool for submittals. So if I'm receiving deliverables from an external vendor or an external consultant, I can manage all that through the deliverables management capabilities of ProjectWise. Now, there's a couple of different ways I can access deliverables management, so I'll speak to those now. One of those is through the ProjectWise Explorer. So I've got a screenshot here on the right again of the ProjectWise Explorer. And if you have deliverables management enabled on your project, you'll see this deliverables management node inside that project work area, as I've pointed out here. But the idea is it would give me the ability to accelerate my request for information process to get issues resolved quickly. So RFIs can be generated easily and routed to the right individuals for response, clarification, or rejection with an automated approval process. And as I mentioned, an audit trail manages your RFI cycle from creation right through to closeout. And then from a transmittal point of view, these can be created directly from engineering data inside ProjectWise to ensure that you're working with the latest information. So I can alert individuals when transmittals are issued and track accountability as items are progressed. And in terms of submittals, we can import submitted documents directly into ProjectWise design integration. We can review and provide responses and feedback, and we can also delegate that responsibility to others, as well as forward to others for additional review. Deliverables management can also be accessed directly from the Connect Center, or some of you might think of this as the web portal. But these could be non-ProjectWise users who wish to share documents with third parties or consultants, vendors, supplying requested documents. Similar to within ProjectWise design integration, we can include recipients, we can set a schedule for acknowledgement and response times, and attach local and network documents. Within the Connect Center portal, documents can also be reviewed using our PDF markup tools that I'll speak to in detail in a separate session. Additional reviewers can also be included when providing responses. So next I'd like to talk about ProjectWise Project Insights, which is really the next generation of ProjectWise performance dashboards. And it really unlocks the intelligent information stored in projects so you can make more timely and data-driven decisions. So ProjectWise Insights allows administrators, project managers, and users to track items such as documents, workflows, and project deliverables, allowing them to see real-time trends in the data. At the same time, Insights allows them to keep projects on track and provide easily readable reports. Some examples of the dynamic reports it provides can be seen in the screenshot, but could include tracking documents by the discipline it's associated with, maybe its status within a workflow, the types of documents in use, are they models, are they drawings, are they spreadsheets, or alternatively, who's in charge of approvals, and are there particular organizations that are holding up the process. So in this screenshot, one can review document workflow approvals over time, while at the same time hovering over a specific date to know the exact state of affairs at that time. The reports can be easily modified using out-of-the-box point-and-click tools, such as can be seen on the right side of the page, or they could be further enhanced by Power BI tools to meet very specific reporting needs, as shown in the final screenshot. So to recap, ProjectWise Insights really allows us to review project progress. It gives us the ability to manage and review deliverable deadlines and the acceptance of those deadlines. We can also analyze business trends with Power BI and gather data from multiple systems. In general, it just gives us the ability through its analytical capabilities to make better decisions on future projects. And there's a link here that isn't available in the PDF if you already downloaded that PDF of the overview slides. I just added it this morning, but if you're interested, I'll post this into the chat window at the end of the session. And it's just a test project that we've set up on the B communities that allows you to go in and try out some of these ProjectWise Insights reporting capabilities. So the last topic I'd like to cover in today's session relates to the management of issues that arise in a project. So within the ProjectWise 365 services on this slide, you can see I've highlighted both issues, resolution, and forms. And the reason for this is that they're very closely tied together in that when I create or generate an issue, the mechanism I use to capture that information is through a form that I can configure at the project level. So project level forms can also be shared among projects. So if I modify a shared form, the changes will be seen across all projects that make use of it. So in this slide, what I'm showing is my dashboard of issues. And this is providing me visibility into all known issues. And so how do I create issues? Well, there's really a number of tools within the ProjectWise suite, some of which I've spoken to, some I haven't, that allow you to create those issues. So it could be through the PDF markup, I can go and generate an issue, could be through our mobile devices, through Edge, through doing design reviews. These are all different ways that we can create issues depending on what it is we're trying to do. But in general, when I create an issue, it pops up a form, and within that form, I can do things like assigning that issue to a particular individual. I can upload attachments. If I'm using my mobile device, I can take a picture and include that as part of my issue. And what this is generally providing is just the ability to track those issues and see things like the subject, what type of issue is it open or closed, who's it assigned to, what's the status, and so on. So giving me an easy to understand report of all my issues. But in terms of how I create those issues, there's different ways of doing them. So in this screenshot, I'm just showing inside of our PDF markup tools that I'll cover in another session. I can go in and I can mark up this PDF, but I can also publish an issue to it. So when I create an issue, it pops up a form and I can choose which type of issue it is. So it's a little bit hidden from my arrow, but in this case, I'm working on a civil PDF file. And so I picked an issue that I've categorized as a civil type. And all that means is that that's going to open up the appropriate form that I've created for that type of issue. So in this particular form, I'm capturing things like a subject matter, I'm putting a due date on it, I'm setting a status, is it open, is it closed, is it ready for review, those sorts of things. I can assign it to different individuals within the project, and I could include um, any sort of description that I wanted to. And this will get stored back in that dashboard that you saw of all of those other issues that we saw on the last slide. But I could also capture issues through our design review tools. So here I've gone in through the iTwins design review, and I've created an issue. And when I created that issue, it grabbed a snapshot of the area where I was working. And when I filled out that form, I can see all the details of the form over here. So what's the subject? Who is it assigned to? What status is it? And then at the same time, if I want, I could include a markup as part of that issue. So in this case, we're in a 3D view, but I'm actually creating a markup in a 2D view. And that allows me to, for instance, go in and draw the cloud. I've spotted something with the chiller on the building on the right side of the screen. And I've gone in and I've marked that up and put a little note there. And that all gets included as part of that issue. So I have the issue, the details from the form, I have the snapshot. I would also have any markups and even any comments that I've added through the tools here. I could also add issues through the mobile application. So in this case, using Edge, in this case on my iPad, I can add a new issue, and I might be using this. I could be out on the job site, and I've spotted an observation. Maybe it's a defect, maybe it's a safety problem that I've noted. Again, I can pop up a form. I can assign this to someone. If I go to the Attachments tab, I have the ability then to just take a photo with my iPad. So in this case, for instance, I've noticed some loose wires in the lobby of the building. I've taken a picture of that. And at the same time, I could also add comments. So if I wanted to add additional level of detail, and this all gets stored as part of that issue. So just to recap, our issues resolution gives us the ability to quickly create an issues log that is reportable, allows us to understand the different issues on the project. We've got numerous tools for creating issues, as you can see here. We can assign these issues to different individuals, and they'll receive notifications that they've been assigned an issue, and there may be a due date assigned with that when you want to see that those results back. And then finally, we can catalog and track issues by completion date or tag. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to see if there's any more questions. That's a very high level overview of what we wanted to cover today in ProjectWise and the various services available to you. Tomorrow's session, I'm going to go into when specific users would use different tools. So I'll cover the personas and some of the requirements as part of that. Feel free to provide any questions or feedback, and we'll look forward to continuing to see folks in the coming days. Thank you all for attending.